when I first booked the role, I thought I was going to go out and buy a car and a house and just go crazy because I thought.
Jason Deline, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cayde. Nice to see you.
Likewise, nice to have you on. So, you described to me in private that your path to voice acting was very non-linear, I mean. If you were to describe how that was non-linear, how would your story and your path to becoming a voice actor, how was it non-linear, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Well, I've always been interested in using your voice, I suppose. When I was very young, my grandfather and my father were both fans of comedy. And back then, a lot of the comedy was on vinyl records or cassette tapes. And, I would go through different things that they had, or they would sometimes gift me with tapes. And my grandfather gave me a tape of Abbott and Costello, the old Who's on First routine. And I was only able to listen to it. There was no video accompanying it. So throughout my youth, I was just used to hearing these old radio shows and comedy bits. And I used to go into my living room and we had a little microphone on our stereo. And I would do the Jason Deline radio show, even when I was only like 6 years old. But I didn't know how to sort of follow that career path. I thought I was just sort of having fun. Later in my teens, I would sometimes imitate sketches I'd seen on Saturday Night Live for friends in school, things like that. And I wanted to be an actor. I always had this performance inside me, but I loved old sort of talk shows like Ed Sullivan, and then I watched Letterman a lot, some of the old Carson stuff. But when I was going through high school and I did all these high school plays and musicals and stuff, I really enjoyed performing. But I didn't really believe at the time that acting was something I could do full time. So I started to think, well, what do I want to do that's performance, things that I enjoy? Well, radio is a real thing. And I kind of went back to that. So I went to radio college. I applied for a few different colleges and I went to Humber College in Toronto. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to be a radio guy. And then I sort of left acting behind and I went into radio for a few years and I moved around. I started in Toronto and then I moved to a town called Collingwood, about an hour north of Toronto. And then I moved to a place called Sault Ste. Marie, which is about 8 hours north of Toronto, sort of in the middle of nowhere. And through these experiences, I got a lot of experience. I got to work at smaller radio stations, so I got to wear a lot of hats. I would be the producer who recorded and engineered all the commercials. I would write almost all the commercials, and I would perform in half of them just because it's easy. If I've written something, I'm producing it, I'm already right here. I might as well voice it as well. So I got lots of experience making very little money for those first few years. But then I realized when I was in Sault Ste. Marie, it was just very far away from my family and my friends in Toronto. And I wanted to make my way back there. I didn't want to spend a lifetime making very little money in radio and sort of listening and talking about music that I didn't even get to pick. It was all somebody else's kind of thing. There wasn't quite as much freedom as I wanted. I couldn't create a lot of my own type of content. It was really following a template in a lot of ways. And I didn't want to have to spend 40 years in radio to then work my way back to Toronto and finally have a bit more control, which I might not even have. So I ended up leaving and deciding to pursue acting. I was really excited about becoming an actor again. And then I moved back to Toronto, and a friend of mine was working at a place called the Movie Network, sort of like an HBO type of thing. So they had different movie channels. And he said, I think you really like this. We have a lot of advanced screenings. We get to go to the Toronto Film Festival. And basically what you're doing is making sure our day times out okay. So programming when the different movies start, making sure they start on time, and filling in the gaps between movies with promos and trailers for other movies and stuff like that. So I went and did that job for a few years, and I rose up the ranks a little bit, and I got to write movie reviews for the website. I got to watch short films and decide which films we added to our library. So there was a lot of interesting things with that as well. but I found I didn't have a creative outlet for myself. I wasn't performing in any way. So I sought out, friends of mine in Toronto would tell me that there are different comedy shows going on and there are different sketch troupes that are putting themselves together, type of thing. So I started talking to different comedians and I got into a sketch troupe. I was one of the founding members of a sketch troupe called Radio Vault. And what it was a bunch of comedy sketches, but we performed it as one of those old school radio shows. So we all wore suits and we stood on a stage and we had microphones in front of us and scripts. So because we were reading from scripts like they did in the old days, we were able to write very detailed comedy scripts. A lot of sketch troupes didn't do that because they would have to memorize it. So they would keep things very basic or they would improv things. But for us, we could write very specific jokes, which was very exciting to me. I really liked it, being in complete control, and every line was important. I mean, we took it very seriously, but we were doing a new 40 minutes of comedy every month, and we did that for a few years. So that was an incredible outlet for me, and got used to writing so much content that was very different from the advertising that I'd been writing to this point. So after a while of that, I thought, I'm spending way too much of my life programming on a computer and not enough doing this performance stuff that I love. So after a few years working there, I left that and I got some new headshots done and decided I'm going to go into this acting thing again. And by the way, since I have all this experience talking on the radio and performing, I might as well cut a voice demo as well. So I went into a production studio and they had a big book of scripts, a collection of scripts, and I recorded a bunch of fake commercials. And then I put on a suit and I walked around Toronto and hand delivered my demo to about a dozen different agents. And a couple of them got back to me that day, which is very rare. But I think I made an impression because I showed up and delivered it in person. And I signed with a talent agency called Fountainhead Talent. And almost immediately, I got a really great response. I had a huge hit rate for auditioning and booking commercials and cartoons. And then I sort of said to myself, well, I guess I'm a voice actor now. And, that was, I think, 2003, and I haven't looked back. So everything kind of had to do with performing in voice. And I had it in the back of my head since I was just a little kid. And I finally found my path. And now I've been doing it for a long time, and I've shifted into coaching as well. So I'm helping other people find that path, whatever it is. There is no one path to this job.
I want to break this down as we go along, but when you said about you took your demos and you went in person to hand it in and they got back to you, before we get into the roles which you're most known for today, what were the initial roles you got offered for?
Oh, wow. That's tough. I don't think I can remember specifically. When I was working in radio, we were working with a lot of local clients. So I was writing stuff for tons of people and recording commercials every day. And then when I went back and into radio after getting my agent, I just remember auditioning. And there's just been so much since. I honestly can't remember what my first thing was. I feel like I should. It might have been a Toyota commercial. I've done lots of different cars over the years. I can't remember. I wish I knew that, Cayde. That's a good question.
That is unfortunate, but hey, I suppose, like you said, you've been on this for so long, you're inevitably going to forget now and again. Just a quick question: would you be allowed to keep? Are you generally allowed to keep any of the recordings you do for advertisements and animation, or is it an industry thing when they go, "Thanks for recording, bye, we're keeping all your work"?
That's a good question. It depends. Some people are very precious about it, and there are rights that are involved with showing something to the public. especially when other people are involved, and they always are. If I was in a cartoon and I've decided, well, I don't mind putting my cartoon that I was in on YouTube so everyone can watch it. Well, that's now become free access to that, which takes revenue out of the pockets of everyone who worked on it, who would get money for selling it to whatever broadcaster, being replayed here and there. So it's not just me. I've made that decision now for the other actors who won't get paid for that playing, and the producers who would sell it to a streamer or something like that, you know. So we do have to be careful to some extent. And there are people who don't like to provide those recordings to people. So we kind of have to chase them after every time we do a recording. And some people are really nice about it, and some people really don't want to do it. But there's sort of a fair use thing where I need to be able to tell people what I do, not just on a resume, but show them a sample. So it can depend how litigious any given company is. I've heard about people who put a demo like on YouTube that just shows clips of different shows and movies and things that they've done, and they've been asked to take it down. But for the most part, when the clips are short, it sort of works as a trailer. It's sort of selling that product as well. So a lot of people just sort of turn a blind eye to it. It's kind of a different purpose. I'm not trying to sell a product except myself. So there's a real variety of stuff in there. And I think most people understand that. So a lot of voice actors will use it on their own personal website or short clips on YouTube, but we never put up a whole episode of something. And, you know, it just depends. It depends on the brand, especially if you're doing different types of things, well, different brands within the same type of product. So if I had a demo online where it showed me doing a Dodge Ram commercial and then a Subaru commercial right after it, they might go, hey, are you with them or are you with us, type of thing. You know, you don't want to be promoting a different product. That said, I need to be able to say, if I've only ever done car commercials, I need to go, I have different styles. I have a certain amount of range within this genre. So I need to be able to show it. So every actor sort of finds their own comfort level with that. And sometimes they get pushback on it. But I think for the most part, people realize it's basically a resume, and it's seen by a different group of people usually than the people they're trying to sell to.
I understand what you mean. So if I was in the future to say voice Optimus Prime for the sake of argument, and I did it for a film, what you're saying is it would be a good idea to show clips, but not literally put the entire film on my channel, because then that just has a domino effect where it knocks on everyone else. It's like, well, okay, you've just screwed everyone over because you've taken everyone's collective work and just gone, yeah, you want to show off, that's cool, but this art director's not getting paid, the sound engineers get, it's so on, so on, so on. I could be here all day with rules. But yeah, I get your point. With the roles you're most known for, which is Drago from Bakugan and Benkei from Beyblade, what was the experience like voicing major roles? And in Drago's case, it was the main. I remember watching the show as a kid. I would describe him as the main Bakugan. What was it like being one of the main characters in in not only an animation, but it was also quite early on in your career as well.
It was, yeah, it was very exciting. And I'll tell you, when I first booked the role, I thought I was going to go out and buy a car and a house and just go crazy, because I thought that's how it worked. You get put in a show and you get rich and famous. But that show is actually dubbing. So for people who don't know what that is, with animation, when it's an original, say it's made in North America, an English speaking animation original, normally what happens is all the voice actors record all their lines before any animation is done. So the animators then animate to what you've done with your mouth. And that gives the actors a lot of leeway for pacing and pauses and maybe improvising little laughs or any kind of thing that they think the character should have. So then the animators are listening to this and make sure that they call them lip flaps, that the lip flaps move properly. So when it goes to another country, they dub it. So they get the voice actors to do all the lines, but they have to match the lip flaps that have already been animated. So with Bakugan, this was actually originally made in Japan. So it's Japanese voice actors did everything first. The animation was done. And then it comes to North America. Some people, some geniuses said this is going to work here too. So they hire a bunch of English speaking voice actors, myself included. So what I had to learn very quickly was I don't have tons of freedom to just do whatever I want. They've translated the script, and hopefully those words will still match up with the Japanese lip flaps. And often they didn't. So in the booth, we're often trying to rewrite something so it doesn't come across as, "Hi there, how are you?" You know, everyone's seen some bad versions of dubbing. A lot of old kung fu movies were done quickly and poorly that way. So I really tried hard to say, wait, can we try it a different way? Can I say something like, "Hi there, what's up?" or something? Drago wouldn't say that, but just to make it so that pause isn't in the middle of a sentence that doesn't make sense, trying to sort of reframe it. So that was a skill I had to learn very quickly. Also, I had to learn how to protect my voice because there's a lot of battling in Bakugan. And Drago sort of talks like this. He's got a real growl and rasp. And if you're not careful, that can tear your throat up. And what I eventually started asking the producers to do would be we do all the dialogue for the episode first, and sort of save the screaming and battling till the end of the session. That way, if my voice got tired and I couldn't do them all, they've still got all the dialogue and they can potentially reuse. We ended up later reusing a lot of the screams and stuff, and we did sort of a library or a bank, they might call it, of different levels of barks and onos is sometimes what it's known as, especially in video games where you're saying, "Get over here now, let's go, we gotta fight, that kind of stuff." So honestly, it was often exhausting. I'd often leave that booth sweating because Drago is the main Bakugan. He and Dan are the main two characters. It's basically an ensemble show, but he's in pretty much every scene. And so there's a lot of, "Let's go, let's do this," different efforts and different battle moves and things. So it was quite exhausting. And there were a lot of episodes in every season, which was really great because I was working there most weeks of the year. I'd come in and do this. And I was in several iterations of the show. So yeah, it was all just very exciting right from the beginning. I was very grateful to have it. I wanted to be in some kind of cartoon playing a character my whole life. And yeah, like you said, it happened very early in my career. So I was mainly just grateful, and I learned a lot on the job. I went home tired and satisfied after every session.
And what did you learn on the job?
Well, like I said, how to do dubbing. And we went through different systems for the dubbing. There's a system called Rhythmoband where you sort of see the waves on a screen, and there's a vertical line we call a wipe. And when it gets to another vertical line, that's when your line starts. And then it might go on for a while. And then when the line hits the other line at the end, you're done. So you have to sort of fit it in there. There's also a version that I kind of call karaoke. So you're watching the actual show, the animation, but underneath there's the text you're supposed to say, your dialogue, and it highlights the words as you go. And what's great about that is if it doesn't match, they can adjust when the words are highlighted. They can add pauses and things like that. So that makes it very easy technically to get the timing right. But often what we would do is we would ignore that and just watch the screen, because sometimes the way it's animated would be a lot of quick cuts and a lot of like punching and kicking and then an attack on yourself and then a fireball. So you kind of got to go, okay, it goes. So there's a lot of different things you sort of have to learn to make it work and to make it sound authentic. Some people are really good at the technical part of it, the timing, but struggle with still bringing the emotion in while they're doing that. You kind of have to use both sides of your brain in voice acting. There's a lot of timing that happens, but also the emotion. It's very different from other kinds of acting. They really need a lot from you technically. So that's one thing I learned. Another thing I learned was to have a range of emotion and pace and volume. Not everything can be at 11. And at the beginning, I think I was trying to do that. Hello, I'm Drago. Let's do this. Yeah. But then you really have nowhere to go. And the funny thing about volume, noise, action is it kind of becomes silent after a while. People sort of tune it out. Like people who can sleep through their alarm in the morning, you know, like if you get used to a sound and it goes on long enough, it just becomes white noise. It just becomes part of the world. So it's important to play with different styles, different things to just shake it up. And we call that shape. To add shape to your performance, you're doing all these different things. You're maybe going up in pitch, and that people notice that, or you go down into the gravel and people, oh, there's gravitas there. And then also whispering. You know, people think when you talk softly that they can't hear you, but what really happens is they're drawn in. They want to hear you. The most powerful thing you can put in a commercial is silence. You know, people really notice when there's that wall of sound, like I said, sometimes a bit of silence breaks through more than anything. And then you have to find out things too, where you're dealing with a lot of exposition, where you're like, we have to go here and then there, and then up the mountain and then down into the well. Sometimes that stuff we can really speed through and go, okay, this is the technical things. This is the stuff we really have to understand, or we just have to get through so we can get to where we're going, you know, speed that stuff up. But then when you've got someone dying in your hands, I'm sorry, I wasn't there for you. And so you feel the weight of that more. And what helps when you can speed through other things, you might have bought yourself some time so you can sink into that. Now with dubbing, it's a little different because it's already timed ahead of time for you. So sometimes there's a way to keep the speed up, but your emphasis is just a little more intentional. I've had people tell me a lot of times, how did you keep that commercial to 30 seconds? It sounds like you're talking slower, but it's just about where you put your intention and taking out the pauses and breaths where you can. So I learned a ton of skills on that show.
It sounds like you have to be very adaptable in the voice acting industry because, like you were saying with the dubbing and the lip flapping, that's actually quite interesting to learn because I wasn't a thought. Well, yeah, obviously you have to time it, but I didn't think you had to be so specific. Unlike when
Mhm.
Squid Game first came out, they quite literally just taught over the dialogue. So you have it where I can't really. It's gonna be awkward to demonstrate, but I'm talking while this thing is kind of yeah. It's really you know what I mean. It was so out of sync. And people were complaining about that, but with the adaptability, why is it so crucial within the voice acting industry? Because you would have thought on paper, with you doing Drago and Benkei, that should, in theory, have been enough to carry you through the entire industry. But if I'm being, I'm going to say this as respectfully as possible, it didn't.
Right. You mean that it didn't lead to other big cartoon roles or something, you mean?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I noticed that because it seems like with you, you had your big moments at the start, and whilst you've been in other animations and film and television, there hasn't been anything that tops those two roles.
Right. Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, you could say the same with Harrison Ford and Han Solo and Indiana Jones, or Peter Weller and RoboCop. You know, some of us peak early. But you know, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. I mean, sure, I'd love to do more animation, but what I love is that so there's sort of a rumor in voice acting, or a myth, that it's the same 10 people doing everything. And a lot of people are scared to try to get into this business because they think they can't compete with the big 10 or 12 people who are doing everything. And a lot of people feel that. I've talked to a lot of people who are actors, comedians, or just people who are interested in this industry. And they say, it's a small clique that I'm just never going to be able to break into. And what I've found is that the people who perpetuate that myth are voice actors with just a small amount of success because they don't want competition. They're afraid of competition. And they know there's an element of truth to it too. They've worked very hard and maybe couldn't break in for a long time. So that, when they got their shot, they thought, okay, well, I don't want people competing with me. I'm finally in. But the truth is, this industry is hungry for new voices. They want new people all the time. And more, they're trying to reflect the real world. And we live in an incredibly diverse world. And they're trying now to cast more authentically. If your character is a person of color, they're trying to hire a voice actor who is a person of color. That's something I support. But what that means is there's been a shift in the industry over the past 20 years or so, where it's not just all white guys doing everything. So there are some older white guy voice actors who don't love the idea of diversity, don't love the idea of people coming in, because now suddenly they've got slightly fewer opportunities than they used to. Whether or not they think that's ethically correct or not doesn't really enter into it. They just want to protect their own, money coming in. And I understand that. And change can be hard. But the truth is, we really need a variety of people to reflect the world. If everybody in the world is watching something, it makes sense that the things they watch speak to them. Right? So, but the other thing is, producers don't always want to take a chance on new talent because their whole show could be riding on this actor who they realize in episode 3, oh my gosh, they have no range at all. We loved that audition where they were in a battle or something, but all they can do is battle. They have no emotional range. So that's why it's important in an audition to try to show as much range as possible within the context of the character you're portraying. So there's sort of a balance is what I'm getting at, is that producers want to work with people they trust while at the same time are hungry for new voices to keep their shows interesting. So it doesn't just sound like the same person doing all the voices in every show. So yes, there is an element of truth where some of the same people get hired a lot because they're trustworthy. But at the same time, they're also hunting down new talent. Now, depending on the budget of a show, they might not have a lot of time or resources for casting. They have to pay a casting person to listen to all these tapes, all these auditions. They don't want to listen to 1 million auditions. Like, they can't say, this is open to absolutely everybody in the world. We'll listen to all of them and find the right person. No, they might only have the budget to do that for a day. And if the audition is, a minute long, we hope that they'll listen to the whole thing. But sometimes after 10 seconds, they go, nah, that's not the right person. So you want to lead with your best work too. But, it just varies. It depends how much they can listen to in one day, how many people are making the decision. There might be a producer, a director, and a casting person who are all making these decisions. There's an animation director as well as the voice director. Sometimes it's the same person. I don't think it should be. Not all people who are good at animation necessarily are good at talking and motivating actors, but it's another expense. So every production is different, what the hierarchy is, what their budget is, what their resources are. So there's a lot of things that, a new up and coming voice actor are kind of fighting against. They have to break through and prove that they're better than all the people that they've already worked with, or not necessarily better, but just maybe better suited for this particular character. So it can be tough. It can, and coming back to me, yeah, you could say that was the biggest thing that I've been involved with, but man, just a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, I've got fans from all over the world who write to me all the time or send me Funko Pops to sign. I've been flown to various conventions and got to meet the fans, sign autographs. I mean, it's been a real treat. And like I said, I've learned a ton. I've been part of a cartoon that will, be around forever. It's cool to have that kind of legacy. And while I was working on that kind of stuff, I realized, by the way, dubbing doesn't pay the same. But like I said, when I first got hired, I wanted to buy a car and a house and all that stuff. So original animation, you get the session fee, but then you get paid royalties for when it's used and shown all over the world for as long as they do it. But with dubbing, it's one and done. That's sort of the way it is. The original voice actors in Japan might still get paid for it whenever it's shown in Japan, but for us dubbing actors, we get our session fee and that's it. So dubbing is not the most lucrative thing. So not a lot of top celebrity voice actors or actors are doing it, right? So it's kind of a great place for up and coming voice actors to get their start. So I got lucky. I got on a show, a dubbing show that became a worldwide phenomenon. It raised my profile for sure. But in some ways, somebody could look at it as sort of an entry level thing. It's not the same as getting, Family Guy or The Simpsons or something like that. It doesn't have the same cachet. So it's not like the people at Fox are going, wow, look at this Bakugan thing. We got to call these guys and get them on The Simpsons or something like that. It's not like that at all. They've still got their list of popular Los Angeles voice actors. And they really don't cast too much outside of their core group anyway. That was back in 1989, I think all those people were cast. So they're locked in. But also, my focus shifted too. I started getting into more on camera things, and I started having really long conversations with people about voice acting. I had a lot of people say to me, how did you do this? What's it like? What do I need to know? And I realized I had a lot to say. I took a lot in from my various jobs, being passionate about comedy and radio, and then working in radio from all aspects, client relations, reading the news, talking about the music coming up with comedy bits, writing commercials that sounded different for different clients, making the clients happy, producing, engineering, voicing all these things, and then doing these different commercials and cartoons. I was really starting to see things from all these aspects that I didn't want to waste time talking to people when they asked for advice. So I was kind of distilling everything into short, bite-sized things. And that's what led me to coaching. I had so many people asking questions, so many people saying, I should teach this. I know what I'm doing, that I really started going into that. And that became my focus. It wasn't so much, I got to be on the next cartoon. I got to be doing this. But also at the same time, I've constantly had a very lucrative, successful commercial voiceover career. Now, that's not the type of thing that everybody knows me for necessarily, but it pays very well compared to working on cartoons. So I was, and that's something I just have always been really good at. I've always loved, Dan Aykroyd on Saturday Night Live. This is the Bassomatic, like selling like crazy products and things like that. I loved the comedy of it, the timing of it, the presentation, that old school presentation. And that gave me a lot of success in radio for the short time I was in it, but made it very comfortable for me to keep doing commercials every day, different genres, different products. And all that experience where I was making very little, working very hard in the early stages of my career at these radio stations, just gave me experience that you just can't get any other way. Just thousands of commercial reads to just hone my skills. And so that became something that I sort of became known as somebody who would save people time, because I would often have a complete commercial done in 1 or 2 takes, where a lot of people have a great voice, but not necessarily great instincts. So they'll be brought into the booth, and they won't necessarily quite get the tone of a commercial or the pacing of a commercial. So they require a lot of guidance, and that's fine. At the end of the day, you still get the product you want, but producers started to learn that rather than spend 6 hours with a handful of other voice actors, they can get it done in one with me, and they're very happy. And after that hour, we might stick around another hour and just throw all kinds of ideas out and really try different styles and things that there just normally wouldn't be the time for. You know, a lot of commercials sound the same. They're just trying to get that message out there. But when you have someone, not to toot my own horn, who is good and professional and fast, you can play a little bit, and then sometimes you get some of those different reads in commercials where I can bring ideas and say, what if I sped this part up and then stopped? Or what if I pretended that I was introducing a different character so my voice completely changes? And then they're like, wow, like we didn't even think of this stuff. We're so used to just someone just reading something, and we have to write. You know, our clients are pressuring us to put all these sales points into something. So like a 30-second commercial really takes 40 seconds to read. So I sometimes come with my writing ideas. I've got all that background of writing those commercials. I'll say, what if we say it this way? What if we cut this part out because we repeat it later? And they go, oh, that's amazing. Or I'm also very good at saying something very fast. And sometimes I can say 40 seconds in 30 seconds, whereas other people can't. So, you know, I know I'm going on and on here, but basically, I'm in this profession for life, and there are different reasons we have to shift to different parts of it, but I'm very confident in the different parts that I've shifted into. I know I'm great at reading commercials in various styles, and I know I'm a great teacher. Would I love to do another cartoon again? Probably. I mean, it is a weekly commitment that is very exhausting. And in some ways, I feel like I've checked those boxes off a couple of times. And I feel very fortunate to have something at that high level. So I think right now I'm focused at being a teacher at that level and just helping other people have a journey even somewhat similar to what I've had. And then I feel like I've had my hand in a variety of performances out there that I would never be able to do for myself, but I've helped other people get to it. So that's now sort of the legacy that I'm concentrated on. And it's an exciting new chapter.
Do you prefer being the mentor in the sense of your coaching, or do you prefer being the student in the sense that you are voicing characters in animation, or just being on camera itself?
That's a good question. It's sort of hard to separate for me because even as a teacher, I feel like mentoring people and helping them often forces me to recontextualize how I feel about it or what I think about it. I get questions all the time that I haven't thought about before, and I find that exciting. And I've also realized everybody learns in a different way. And I've been in the booth many times with a director who is very technical. Shorten this, go up here, down here, pause here, and not really focusing on the emotions of it. And some people are great at that. Some people aren't. And then I've been with directors who say things like, try to make it spongy. And then you have to interpret that however you want to. And some actors are really great at that kind of thing too. They're like, got it. I can just be creative with this. I think I feel what you're trying to say as opposed to understanding. And I've learned through my years of working with different directors and different actors that it's great to allow yourself to expand how you learn and how you teach. Really, it's about communication, and I think I'm good at figuring out how somebody communicates fairly quickly. And my interest is in learning to communicate with everybody. Some people are more difficult to communicate with than others, and one of the skills I've worked on more over the last couple of years is just listening, trying to understand people. And really, I think the core of teaching, learning, and performing, and almost anything in life, is empathy. to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and to care about what they want out of an experience, what they don't want, what their fears are, what their goals are, how they learn, how they talk. You have to care. If you really want to get something across to somebody, if you really want to help somebody, it can't just be about a paycheck. You can't just read from a form letter. It can't just be a template. There are some things, some concepts that can be distilled into, and I've done this in my teaching too. I've tried to make a core concept very simple. And I try to teach only a few simple concepts in any given session with somebody so it can really sink in, and then give them an exercise that's practical so they can act on it. Because I learn by doing. I could watch videos and read books, and it's never cements until I've actually done it. So I have a very practical approach to when I'm teaching people. It's not just me talking and talking and talking, making them read. It's doing. Get behind that mic as soon as you can. And if you don't have a mic, you can still perform. You can still learn about your voice. You can still improve your diction. You can still get confident in front of a crowd, all these things. So when you ask if I prefer to be the student or the mentor, I mean, to me, it's hand in hand. I'm always learning how to be a better teacher, a better mentor. And as I get older, I just have more experience. I feel like I have more to offer. It's not that I have less to learn, but I have more to offer. And I have learned from people that aren't great teachers, and I've learned from people who are great teachers. So my goal is to just be a good teacher, be someone who's clear and calm and makes people feel safe, makes people and feel empowered, make them realize that this is attainable for them. But yeah, I mean, nobody in this knows everything, and it's not necessarily rocket science either. I mean, you can grab 20 different books on voice acting off the shelf, and they all generally kind of say the same thing. The shorter the book is, the more similar it'll be to other ones, and the longer it is, it's just individual personal stories that are woven in there as well. But what really matters is, to me, the connection with your coach. And I want to help as many people as I can. So I've really focused on being able to connect with as many different types of people as possible and making them feel confident and empowered. And I'm still learning to do that. So I may not be learning the basic skills that I learned and practiced over the years, but I'm still learning to be a great coach. And that's still very exciting for me.
Would you say, with the journey that you've been on, all the experiences from all the roles you've done, all the commercials, even being on set, would you say that you've naturally come to the point where now's the time to release a coaching membership course? Or would you say, because I was going to ask originally, why have you left it until like 15 years after your hire? But I think now, after listening to you, it makes more sense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an evolution. Yeah. And I have been teaching for 15 years. And the first things I taught were one-day workshops. And it was very simple: a laptop, a microphone, and a room I rented at the Bad Dog Theater in Toronto, which was a comedy venue that I used to perform at. And it was very basic. And I almost immediately moved away from the one-day workshop model, because I realized that I was throwing a lot of information at people and then just sort of not knowing what was happening after that, if they absorbed it, if they understood it, if they acted upon it. So I shifted to a model of, really, I try not to do less than a 4-week workshop or class. And every week builds on the week before. So the first week, the first thing we do is get up on our feet. We start using our voices. We do some cold reads, get people to read the commercial, realize, oh, okay, like this is it. You get behind a mic immediately. If you're not comfortable with this, we got to kind of get you comfortable. And then, I talk about some core concepts, bring them into the studio and get them to start acting on it, whether it be character or diction or script analysis. And then we come back into, the classroom setting. I usually have 10 or fewer people, so there's enough time for everybody to get behind the mic. And then we'll bring them back in and we play things back. So everybody hears everybody's work. They learn from each other. I really believe in group classes that way, because when the pressure's not on you, you can kind of relax and learn from somebody else and then put it into practice. And then you've got a group of people who are sort of celebrating your success as well, which I think is nice. And then we'll say, okay, we've learned how to do this. We've practiced this. Here's your homework. The homework might just be thinking about this, or go and find an example of this, or read this out loud a few times. Next week, you come back. We talk about what you discovered in this past week. Some people discover more or less than others. And then I'll build on that and say, okay, so now that we've got this, we can talk about this. And then the same type of thing happens. I'll do a bit of a lecture. We do some practical practicing in the booth. They go, oh, I kind of get it. We might go back and do the booth again, and then new homework for that next week. So it's really sort of this cumulative, protracted approach where everything's being built on. And then some versions of that will be, there might be a demo recording at the end of it, depending on their experience level and how long it's been going on, things like that. So I've done something like that for a long time. And then the pandemic arrived. So we weren't doing anything in person anymore, but people were still, talking to me and wanting to do training. And it was there was not a lot of work happening during the pandemic, but it was a lot of people were taking that opportunity to refocus, and they had time on their hands. So they wanted to learn. They wanted to maybe shift into a different kind of career. So I was doing some online coaching with just Zoom calls here and there with people. And that started to get busier and busier. And then I realized, maybe we should be taking some of this stuff online, like having courses people can do properly. When we can't be in the studio together, I can still teach a lot of these concepts. People can still practice at home. And most of the auditions now are from home. So everyone who went into a booth pre-pandemic to do their auditions for commercials and narration and cartoons and all this, going to a place just disappeared. So we no longer had the benefit of having a director say, just try it like this, shift it a little bit, which can be so helpful. Because when we read a script, we interpret it our own way, and we go into an audition and we read it, but it might not be anywhere near the pace, tone, character, whatever that they had in mind. So the smallest direction from a director can change all of that, can be wildly different. So that's a real benefit to people, to be able to go into a studio, try it, and have a redirect. And then, the chances are better that you're going to book it, probably. So that all went away. So people have had to learn how to build a studio at home, how to self-direct, how to listen to themselves and realize whether it's good or bad. Do I need to send another take? If I send that second take, is it different enough from that first take that it shows my range? All this kind of stuff. So all this is rattling around in my brain too. Like, this is a whole bunch of new stuff I need to be sharing with people who don't know it. So about halfway through 2020, when we're all still at home, especially in Toronto. Toronto was really locked down. I started putting together something I called, so my courses, like I've always called my courses and workshop, Find Your Voice with Jason Deline. So I came up with this idea called Find Your Voice 365. So I'm not sure when we launched. I don't think it was January 1st of 2021. I think it was a little later, but it was a year's worth of content. The idea was they had something new every single day for a year. So huge commitment on my part, but I had the time at the time. And it was an ambitious project, and I won't ever do something quite like this again. But it was a huge learning experience for me, because what I did was I took a look at all my workshops. I took a look at the stuff I was learning about how the pandemic was changing the industry. And then I explored more advanced theories and things that I just haven't really taught. And I really tried to get into a lot of little specifics and then try to take all these ideas. And if I had an idea for one lesson or one workshop, I would try to distill it into the smallest things possible that I could learn. Just one core concept. And maybe it's only a 30-second video that talks about this concept that I would upload and say, okay, here's something I want to talk about today. Very specific, very small. Here's an exercise. Go try it. See you tomorrow. 365 of these. So it kept me busy. Sometimes I say it kept me sane during that time, but I don't know. You have to be kind of crazy to try something like that. But what I found very quickly was that people got behind. Even though people had time on their hands and they had interest, it's exhausting to commit to something every single day. And people got behind and they stopped showing up to like the live events that we would have like every week or every couple of weeks. We would do like a question and answer period where we talk about their progress. People would upload their recordings and things like that. Well, participation kept going down. And I would talk to people individually and they said, I can't keep up. It's just, I'm still working on the first chapter. And then, so I took all that in and I did a lot of private coaching with all of them. And at the end of the year, I realized, okay, I've got to now change how I've done this. Instead of doing sort of a character lesson, sort of on, say February 1st, character 1, and then I go into narration and animation and, documentaries and e-learning or whatever. And so that's February. And then maybe in April, I come back and do character 2. Well, this isn't as focused maybe as some people would like. So at the end of the year, what I've done is, I've done 6 different chapters throughout the year on character. Let's just put together a character class. So it's sort of all these videos in one thing. So then I decided, okay, that's my long-term goal, is to create online courses and people can just do what they want at the pace they want. So it's videos and exercises, and the videos are short, and maybe each course is like an hour. So they can commit to that course and do it at their own time, and then they can start the next one. They're not getting behind. And then if we have a live Q&A or something where people are showcasing their stuff, it doesn't all have to be the thing we talked about that week. It's whatever anybody's working on at the moment, and they can ask whatever question they want. And everybody, again, learns from each other, and we've got a nice supportive community. So around 2022, I started thinking about that. But then different things started happening in our industry where we had actors' strikes, we had union strikes, we had a lockout of union actors in Canada, which we're still battling. So work was just really fluctuating, and I was busy with various projects and just trying to put food on the table for my own family while we were struggling through the work kind of going away and a lot of the stuff that I did. And I also felt guilty wanting to take money from people to coach them and to teach them these courses, because I thought, if our industry is hurting this much, I can't in good conscience say, come pay me a bunch of money to learn how to do this and go out into the world where there's no work. So I really wrestled with that for a while. And, but all through that, people were still getting me to do one-on-one coachings, and that was picking up. And I was doing a lot of that, just working with different people, and I would do workshops here and there. I created voiceover for improvisers at the Second City. That was very popular. I did a teen class and an adult class. Here in Vancouver, I did one at the Vancouver Improv Center, which was quite popular as well. And so, I was just getting the message that people just want to learn, even if there's no guarantee of work. This is a dream for a lot of people. They want to try it. And I've realized too that our industry has started to come back in this past year or so. And there's a lot of work for kids, and there are new animators and writers who maybe want to change the way we've been doing things since forever and get new voices in, maybe unpolished voices in that sound more real, sound not as polished, just different and reflect the world that we live in. So I've been encouraged by that. And I've decided that, this industry has changed a lot. We're still only auditioning from home, really. It's very rare we go into the studio, but there's work happening and people want to learn. So over this past year, I've come to the realization that I want to build this again. I want to do it properly. I want to bring these classes online and give access to as many people as possible. I want to try to keep the prices low so that even if you don't have a ton of money, there's not a barrier keeping you out of at least learning some basics and trying your hand at it. So, yeah, it's been an evolution for sure, from starting out in just a little room with a microphone and a laptop years and years ago to bigger courses in professional studios to now trying to do it all online.
Jason Deline, everyone. Normally I would just end the episodes right there, but you've got a special offer for my audience, haven't you?
I have, yes. So we are still in the midst of getting all this stuff online. My wife Helena and I are doing it all ourselves to try to keep costs low. And our goal is to launch at least sort of a founders program on May 1st. So that will be the first iteration of the memberships that you can get online and take the courses, sign up for coaching. There'll be different tiers of memberships that have different perks. And then we're hoping to have a real big official launch on June 1st. So anybody who signs up before that will get access in May. And for your viewers, if they can go to my website at any time, it's already ready to go to get on our mailing list. It's jasondeline.com, JASONDELINE.com. There are various buttons throughout that says you can click for a consultation or contact. And in our contact field, you put your name and your email. And then in the message, if you put chapters of success, you will get 10% off any coaching or membership for the next 6 months. So basically till the end of 2025, you'll get 10% off as a loyal listener to Cayde and his YouTube channel here, his podcast. So you can go onto that right now and get on the mailing list, and you'll find out first when that's going to be available. And you'll also be offered for free my ebook, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful Voice Actors. It's a pretty quick read, but it's a couple of actionable things that you can do right now that will put you above, honestly, so many people in this industry who don't bother doing the work, don't do the warm-ups, don't do the exercises. So yeah, we're very excited about it.
I look forward to seeing who joins up. Link's going to be in the description below. Jason Deline, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked listening to Jason Deline, then you will enjoy my conversation with Dot, who is one of the best AR artists in the world. But if you want to learn from another voice actor, then I have Ariana Ratner right here. Oh, and the playlist for the shorts